welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Astetka, and you can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 269, and to be frank, we don't have a lot of good things to talk about this week, but we're going to do it anyway. Scott is alongside. He is at Scott G. Bird. Scott, what's going on, my friend? How's your Sunday?
It's all right, man. It's been a while since we weren't able to wax lyrically about a woman's performance. We'll get to that, right? So like you said, not a whole lot of wonderful things to speak about. But Iowa State did get a big win. Yesterday I was in person for that one. Brought the lad along, brought my mom, brought my wife, brought a family friend, shout to Sipo. It was a good, healthy crew watching Iowa State thump Arizona. So at least one positive to talk about.
And now you guys are probably hunkered down in dealing with some snow and some winter mess, right?
You know, we actually didn't get any snow. We were like just north of the band, but it's been below zero for the last, I think, 3 or 4 days. We were at wind chill was negative 27, I think 2 days ago, which is pretty brutal. We're sitting at a cool, balmy 0 degrees today here in Iowa. Wind chill, I'm not quite sure what it is, but definitely not a good time to go outside, that's for sure.
I certainly cannot relate, and I know that this gentleman cannot either, being that he is a SoCal boy. Todd is also with us. He is at TC_show. Todd, how's your Sunday?
Any day, brother. Any day you can chat about 2 goal-scoring center backs is a good fucking day, and we'll come on to that. Also want to give a special shout-out to my Carrick Rangers of the Northern Ireland Football League. For picking up their first major silverware in 33 years, winning the County Antrim Shield this week. So up the girls.
Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not feeling very potty this week. There's a lot going on, obviously, in the world and in the country specifically. I've been going through it the last few days, just wondering where I live and how we're all getting by. I very nearly said, fuck it, let's not even pod today. I kind of just want to sit and wallow in this, but my wife did remind me that part of the reason we do this is for community and to get to spend time with one another. And look, we're not going to talk about Tottenham Hotspur positivity, but we're going to talk about Tottenham Hotspur, and that's what we love to do. But I just, I don't know what came over me. Today's the first day I'm not feeling very potty in quite some time. So if the listener hears that, you'll know why. And, you know, we live in the world that we live in, but we're going to try and provide some people a little bit of a distraction here for the time being. Let's talk about what happened earlier this week against Borussia Dortmund, because this was a weird match, if I'm being completely frank. It looked like a Dortmund team showed up to N17 that didn't know how to play football. They came in. Normally when Spurs and Dortmund face off against one another, it's like box office. And this match just kind of had a whole lot of Spurs having the ball and throwing it at Dortmund's net and things going their way. I didn't really think it was a great performance per se, despite it being a really comfortable and easy 2-0 win. But Scott, what was your takeaway from midweek in the Champions League?
Dortmund were awful. Just They were abysmal, and granted, they were down a man. That very much impacts off the ball movement, and I think they were a little bit confused as to what they were trying to do down a man, right? And that impacted them. But just stagnation is the word I would use. Any ball that was received, the receiver just stood and looked around. They weren't aware of what they wanted to do when they received the ball, and again, that's impacted by the fact that they were down a man and probably weren't prepared to play in that manner, right? But they were a very poor side on the day. And I think that's just indicative of what we've talked about over the weeks, which is that the Premier League is a superior competition to the Champions League these days, right? Until you really get to like the quarterfinals, I think, then it can maybe match the Premier League. But Europe is not what it used to be because of the lopsidedness of the Premier League against every other competition on the continent, right? So I look at the fact that we're in 5th place or 6th place or whatever it is, and it doesn't make me feel better about our situation. Are we in 4th place? And it doesn't make me feel better about our situation because I think the Premier League is much more of an accurate representation of what's going on with this football club right now. So yeah, chalk it up to Dortmund being really poor, not any momentum in Tottenham's favor.
You are right. We're fifth. I said fourth, but we do sit fifth in the table with Frankfurt to come. Todd, I kind of lean to agree with Scott a little bit. I think the expansion of the Champions League has made this a different factor as well. But what did you see on I guess that was Tuesday?
I don't think the expansion. I mean, Dortmund would have been in the old Champions League format. Dortmund would have been there as well. I think Dortmund is poor. They were missing some key folks. Obviously, going down a man in the first half certainly boded well for Tottenham. Thomas Frank does what in the second half what he does best, which is shut up shop and pass sideways and backwards. I mean, listen, we can't talk about this match without talking about our incredible home record of 24 games now unbeaten in European competitions. Tottenham is a big club, Andrew, with European pedigree. And so the fact that we are performing at this level on the European stage is a big deal. But it's also extremely bipolar for this football club and for this manager, because we can have that result at home in the Champions League on Tuesday and have everybody clapped off the pitch and the fans cheering like the good old days at White Hart Lane, and then we can go to fucking Turfmoor on Saturday and poop our pants. So it's a standard Tottenham Hotspur season, and we kind of are where we are.
I think when we look at the actual players on the pitch that played in this match, the thing that obviously will stand out to everyone is that Jed Spence played as a left winger. You know, they played with all three of their essentially senior fullbacks on the pitch at the same time, with Porro at right back, Udogie at left back, and Jed Spence playing more forward in a left wing position. And I thought he looked good. Now he led
the game in most successful take-ons.
Right. I mean, he's not a dynamic left winger in the traditional sense, but he fit in this match and played really well in the position. And I think that when you can create overloads on that side with Xavi Simons coming in from the middle of the park and Destiny Udogie overlapping, I think it worked, and I think it looked really, really strong. And I thought that was what stood out to me more than anything. And it opened up space on the right side for Wilson Odobert, who has been really, really good of late and assisted on both of the goals in this match. And Wilson Odobert, ironically enough, has looked really good as the, I guess, short-term Mohamed Kudus replacement at right wing.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I like Wilson Odobert as a prospect. Of the three French prospects that I have, I think Wilson profiles to have the most successful Premier League career. And so I'm glad that he's the one that by and large we're all in on. He showed with Burnley in his season up that he has potential. He showed with Burnley in his season in the Championship that he can produce on that level. He's also one of the only players that we have that is not afraid to take a speculative shot from outside of the box. Like, these are all major positives for me. I think his shot selection needs to improve. And I think that his body control at times lets him down in the final third. So I think those are a couple things that he can work on. But overall, real positive, real bright light for Spurs in Wilson Odobert, Scott.
Odobert was great, and I've been one who's been somewhat critical. Not because I didn't believe in his ability to get there, but I have been critical of his play at times, right? And he has really taken a step forward. I've been very much impressed with his link-up play in and around the box, especially his ability to receive the ball in tight spaces and find opportunities on goal, as Andrew just mentioned, from those tight spaces impressed me quite a bit. And then Spence, I really liked him at left wing. It's interesting, a family member of mine who is very close to joining an MLS club as a data/tactical analyst was actually just brought on by the Fire to help integrate a new South African signing into the organization, who really, really knows football. It's my wife's cousin, has been telling me for months that we need to play Spence at left wing, and I was just like, yeah, whatever, bro. And clearly he knows more about ball than I do, because it did look really good, I think. And not saying that this is our long-term solution, but I think he can deputize at left wing until we figure out what we want to do at that position. The only issue is
Well,
we need him to play left back as well because we don't have bodies there. It did come out that Andy Robertson is going to be joining Celtic, from what we're seeing, and is no longer interested in the move to Spurs, which is not terribly surprising.
when did that come out?
Like yesterday. And I get it. He probably wants to go home, right? And he'll play every minute at Celtic, and he's not going to be, deputizing Udogie and whatever else, right? But I do think we're going to continue to have a tough time bringing in the type of profile that elevates us just because of the state of the club right now and the manager and all of that, right? But anyways, I digress, and I go back to Spence and say he did a really good job at left wing, and I'd like to find a way to get him to be able to play a few more minutes up on the left flank for sure.
I think that the other thing that should be pointed out prior to this match, and I do want to come back to the Spence conversation. There's something I want to touch on from the Burnley match regarding Spence, but I want to pause on that for a second. The other big part of the Burnley match was Solanke returns in a starting role, and of course he had to be put back into the Champions League squad, you remember, because he was previously replaced by Mathys Tel. So Tel goes back out of the Champions League squad. Todd, you mentioned it, of our young French winger prospects, like you like Odobert. I know Tel has not been high on the list, and I know Colomwani has been even lower than Tel. But this move for Tel is so strange for me because I don't feel like we're utilizing Mathys Tel in the way that he should be. And that's not to say that he would have made all the worlds of difference in the Champions League for this match and then one more. You can, of course, change the roster once you get through the group stage, and there's only one more match of that. So not a big deal in the long term. But it just is weird to me how we are using, or not using, I should say, Mathys Tel, because he's not even really playing that many significant minutes in the Premier League. So he's not playing in the Champions League or the Premier League at this point. What is he doing here exactly?
Well, and I think that that's a significant point. I mean, to be fair, when we purchased Mathys Tel, we purchased him for Ange. And we said, this is a good young prospect. He's one of the best forward prospects in Europe. We can get him for cheap because of the Harry Kane money. Like, this is a good deal for Spurs. We'll figure it out. Well, the problem is that Mathys Tel, much like Brennan Johnson, is the second striker in a 4-4-2 in England. And unfortunately, Andrew, I don't know if you know this, but we don't play a fucking 4-4-2. And so Mathys Tel is not a left wing, and Mathys Tel is not a striker. His hold-up play is not good enough in England in order for him to get consistent starts at the 9. He's not quick enough on the turn to find the back of the net after receiving the ball, and he's not physical enough to do the hold-up dirty work that we need in order to unlock guys like Xavi Simons. He's also not a 7, and the reason why is because he can't fucking beat people consistently in the Premier League off the dribble, the way that like a Jed Spence can. And his finishing from outside of the box is not good enough, and his finishing from inside of the box is not good enough. And so if I'm Thomas Frank, I'm looking at the situation that I have, and I'm like, well, I'd rather play Jed Spence on the left wing than Mathys Tel because Jed Spence can beat a man and get a pass into the box, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. As much as I like Mathys Tel, and I like his fight, and I like his hunger, and I like his attitude, and I like his determination, right now we don't play the kind of football that's going to help Mathys Tel's career expand. So I think a lot of what you're seeing is that he and his agent and his body language have been very vocal about their displeasure with Thomas Frank and displeasure with Tottenham as an organization. And Mathys Tel is legitimately looking for a way to go play regular football before the end of this month, and I can't blame him, Andrew.
He's one of us, basically, is what you're saying. He's sick of Thomas Frank, and he's sick of the way the Tottenham Hotspur are playing. And
Facts.
Hand up, me too.
Same, bro, same.
The other really significant thing that comes out of this match, obviously, is the injury to Lucas Bergvall, which was deemed a high ankle sprain, which required surgery, which is not something that you hear very often, if I'm being honest. I have suffered a pretty severe high ankle sprain. It did not require surgery. It's something that requires a lot of rehab to get the strength back into the ankle. But surgery is not a super, super common outcome from a high ankle sprain. Yet, of course, for Tottenham Hotspur injuries, it's always the worst case scenario. And Lucas Bergvall is now going to be out for at least a couple of months recovering from an ankle injury that was suffered in this match as well.
So what we've heard is that it's ankle ligaments. right? That's what he needed surgery on. I've never in my life heard of a high ankle sprain that required ankle ligament surgery. So this may be another, it's a serious injury and our staff is calling it a knock, right? So like, oh, it's a high ankle sprain. That could be knee surgery, to be fair. Like, we don't know what, like, the fact that it's coming out that it's ankle ligaments is a positive, I guess, because I don't know. But we've also seen like James Madison be out 6 months because of fucking ankle ligaments before. So I don't really know, Andrew. It's like you said with Tottenham Hotspur, it seems to be. I'm wondering if, like the San Francisco 49ers, like the Tottenham Hotspur training ground is next to a data center or something, because our soft tissue fucking injury record over the last 6 years is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't understand.
Investigation to come.
We talk so much about why our injury record is the way it is, and for me, it's just always about depth. We don't carry the depth required to rotate well enough to avoid injuries, and it's been that way for a long time. So
I don't disagree. And talking about midfield depth, I think it's a good opportunity here, Scotty, to ask you, what do you think of Conor Gallagher so far?
I think he's been steady. I don't think he has impacted the team in a way that has elevated us, but I also don't expect him to be able to come in and single-handedly elevate this team, right? So I think he's been steady. I think he's offering an outlet. I think he's playing the A position probably better than anyone else has, but the team is so poor that I don't really think it's going to make a significant enough impact for us to really notice much. So I'd use the word steady again.
When you look at the Champions League table at this point, as I mentioned, Spurs sit 5th, which is great. I mean, we've been talking about this match now for 15 minutes, and it sounds like it was all bad. No, they won the match 2-0. They sit 5th in the Champions League table. A win against an already eliminated Frankfurt away this week will put Spurs in the top 8 and have them avoid the playoff rounds and put them into the last 16 of the Champions League. That all sounds really, really cool and really, really doable. What it means in the long term, I'm having a little bit of trouble here because what it means in the grand scheme of things, I'm not really entirely sure. Would I rather see Spurs into the last 16 of the Champions League than not? Of course. Do I think it means long-term good things for this team in this competition this season? Not really, but it's more games to watch, which I like. It's more opportunities for Thomas Frank to make a fool of himself with tactics, which will lead to more opportunities for us to call for his sacking. Like that is kind of the way I feel about this team right now, unfortunately.
Technically it's more money for transfers, right? Like each round that you
yes.
advance, you get a significant bump in what we earn.
Sure. And that's a big part of it too.
Teenagers.
Not saying it'll go to transfers, or if it does go to transfers, they'll be 19-year-olds from some fucking league you've never seen in person. But it's a different conversation.
Exactly.
And 5 of these top 8 teams are English in the Champions League, which is.
And the one that's outside that still has a legitimate chance is City at 11th.
Right.
Look. If let's say we get all this money from the Champions League by advancing to the round of 16, right? And we give that money to Johan Lange. It's like me giving my 10-month-old $100 and say, go to Walmart and shop. You know,
he won't make it out of the parking lot, and he'll probably shit his pants.
Exactly. He'll be crawling next to the car, sobbing and screaming, is what will happen, right? Yeah. It fills me with no confidence. And again, getting to the round of 16 is fantastic. I don't mean to be just a Debbie Downer, but what's going to happen in the round of 16 when we play Bayern or Inter Milan or Real Madrid or Barcelona or Arsenal? Like, we are going to get fucking...
Well, I don't know, dude.
We're going to...
Well, here's the thing.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Here's the thing. We wouldn't draw one of those teams because those are also going to be top 8 teams.
Exactly.
So we would draw a lesser team.
Like PSG, for example, Real Madrid.
They're going to be in there too.
Top 8. Yeah, so I don't know.
So that's what I'm saying. We get another round, Scotty. We get another round before we get to we're not going to beat those guys portion of this conversation.
So
that's my whole point.
We have a chance at the quarterfinals.
You're talking about...
I'm saying we have a chance at the quarterfinals, where we will get smoked, but I'm saying we have a chance at the quarterfinals.
Okay. But you're talking about potentially playing someone like Galatasaray or Atalanta.
Sure, and we can beat those guys.
Right, exactly. And that's what I mean. But here's my grander point. What does that mean in the long term? other than
Nothing.
the money thing, which is a positive, obviously. But
Well, it means that Thomas Frank is going to be here until we hire Mauricio Pochettino in the summer. And like I've just kind of resigned myself to that situation. And I'm not happy about it, and it makes me very sad. And watching the football that we watched in that Burnley match at the weekend, everyone was left with a sour taste in their mouth for obvious reasons. So, I don't know. Scotty, what were you going to say, bud?
I don't.
You were going to tell me about how awesome Galatasaray was?
No, I think what I was going to ask you actually is, let's say Galatasaray or Atalanta or any team of that ilk, right? My question is, does that team beat Burnley? Does that team beat West Ham? That's kind of where this all draws back to for me.
No, your point is well taken in that the Premier League is actually the Champions League.
100%.
And nobody wants to talk about that. But
right,
this, I mean, and there's EPL hubris that if you talk to Continental fans, they'll tell you about. And then they'll be like, well, why does Real Madrid have more Champions Leagues than anybody in all of this? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, when your league consists of 5 legitimate teams and then everybody else is dross, like, you can do more.
But I also would say that I think Atalanta beats Burnley, and I think Atalanta beats West Ham, and I think that bleeds into the Thomas Frank conversation.
But regardless, that's all semantics. Like the grander point, and Dakota made this point in our WhatsApp chat this morning. Like the grander point is, we fired a man who was only prioritizing one competition because we want to be able to compete in all competitions, and now we are right back to the place that we were last year, only competing in one competition. The big difference is we're not winning the Champions League, whereas we were favored to win the Europa League. So we're not actually competing in the Champions League, even though we are still going to be in the Champions League going forward until we're not. Like that's the big difference that we're seeing here.
I mean, with any sort, like, yes, you, John the pragmatist, can absolutely hold that opinion and be comfortable in your position. What I will say is that anything can happen in a knockout tournament. If you get me the quarterfinals of any knockout tournament, right, at that point in time, I've got a 1 in 8 chance of winning that bitch. So what are we even talking about?
But here's the thing, though. I'm not John the pragmatist. John the pragmatist is our manager now. Do you think he's taking this team into a Champions League quarterfinal?
Well, I think that Ange, for all of his good points and all of his bad points, had to kind of resign himself to more pragmatic ways in order to win a knockout competition. Which, to be fair, it's not like Ange releasing the reins or something. He's shown that in knockout competitions throughout his career, he knows how to shut up shop and play narrow and beat teams on the break in a different way. And so that's like, to you guys' very point, like, or to Dakota's point, as it were, like, are we better off now than we were a year ago? Are we better off now than we would be in the middle of season 3 of Ange? And I think definitively none of us can say that we are.
Dude, we would all objectively, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we would all objectively say, let's bring Ange back on a 6-month contract to see what he can do in the Champions League knockouts. I don't think there's any Spurs fan who would be against that at this point, as silly as that sounds, right? And again, I'm not advocating for...
There'd probably be about 10% that tell you to pound sand.
Maybe, right? But I'll tell you who wouldn't tell me to pound sand is Christian Romero and Mickey Van de Ven.
Facts.
And those guys who actually make an impact, right? So, anyway, I digress.
They get to say a lot considering they score all the goals.
They do everything. I mean, without them, we'd be relegated. We'd be in the bottom 3 at this point without those 2 players. So thank goodness for them.
Let's get into the Burnley match a little bit, because this kind of grander point that we're talking about with Thomas Frank is kind of what I want to lead with in this match. Because in watching this match, I know everyone saw something a little bit different than I might have in the first half of this match. We came out, obviously, with 3 center backs on the pitch, but to me, we were not playing a back 3 in the first half of this match. We were playing with Mickey Van de Ven as a full-on left back and Jed Spence as a full-on left wing once again in the first half of this match. And the switch that Thomas Frank made at halftime, and I don't know if it was pre-planned to give Pedro Porro a rest, but bringing on Destiny Udogie for Pedro Porro changed this match in a way worse way than I think people realize for me, and I think Thomas Frank deserves all of the scrutiny for it. Bringing in Udogie for Porro means Spence moves over to the right side to play right wing back in this match, and Udogie plays left wing back, and then they truly did shape back into a real back 3 for that second half. And for me, there was no doubt that this was all a kind of an attack on Kyle Walker, which I think is a good place to attack. But when they were
well, seeing as that he's the reason why we lost.
Correct. But when they were and look,
Or
I know what happened at the end of felt like a loss though, right?
Yeah, fucking A.
Obviously, he made the cross for their first goal toward the end of the second half, and that can't.
And it was inch perfect.
And it was inch perfect. But for the rest of that half, prior to that, he was being shut down because Jed Spence was so far up the pitch and being that dynamic type of left winger that we talked about earlier, that he had so much to deal with. And when you have Van de Ven right up behind him, pushing you as the left back, he's not getting past either of those guys. And it pinned Kyle Walker back for most of that half and gave Spurs the freedom to play out on the right. And it also gave Xavi Simons the freedom to play centrally with a team. And this is what I've been saying about Xavi Simons all along, guys. Xavi Simons is going to thrive when he has time on the ball in the center of the park to be creative. And that's what he was doing throughout the entire first half of this match. And when you shove him over to the left side and pin him in that corner in the second half, he was not as effective. And it showed. And I thought that this simple little tactical tweak really, really fucked us in this match.
100%. I think that the other thing about Xavi Simons that you can say is that he's a significantly better player when he has a striker in front of him that's good at hold-up play.
100%.
And so, and Dom's
made a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah, no doubt.
Which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Andrew, you and I were chatting about this a little bit yesterday, but I do agree with you that in the first half we were a back 3-5 in defense, right, and then shifted to a 4-3-3 in possession, right? That also tactically is what allowed Walker to be wide open, right? When you're asking the left center back to shift to left back in possession and the left wing back to go to left wing in possession and then shift back quickly in defense, you do often leave that little gap open, which Kyle Walker found himself in with acres of space. I mean, dude, he could have made a cup of tea.
It was off of a throw-in.
Yeah, and
100%.
And you can see.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you could see that in the aftermath of that goal, Dom Solanke looking around going, wait, was that me? Who was supposed to mark that guy? Because he was entirely unmarked. So.
At first I blamed Spence, but then I kind of thought maybe that was Van de Ven that should have been there. Then it could have been a multitude of people, right? So I think it was just a clusterfuck. It was off a set piece, like you said, but I do think that the only slight complication with that tactical approach can be those moments where there's confusion in that space of the field. It's not going to happen on the other side, right? But it happens on the side where the wing back is expected to play a true wing position in possession, right? And it did backfire. So maybe that's some of why Thomas Frank made that decision. But if that's the case, then he made a rash decision off of like kind of a one-off, right? And I don't like that either. But I agree with you 100% that shift at halftime really, really disrupted the play. And I somewhat wonder if he was a little bit skeptical of Pedro Porro as well, because Porro, I'm not kidding, 3 or 4 times turned the ball over in just horrendous situations to turn the ball over.
Porro's been off for weeks. I've been saying it. He's just
for sure.
Well, and I think that I think that as much as we slate Thomas Frank, and rightfully so, but specifically for taking off Pedro Porro, I think that Pedro Porro is the one player in our squad that when he's tired and like doesn't have the required rest, you see the most significant drop off in his caliber of play. And so clearly he's gassed and needed to sit, and that's why. The problem with that is that Jed Spence is a significantly better left back than he is a right back, and that's not a comfortable conversation for anybody to have right now. But like, facts.
And not only that, he's proving to be a better left winger than a left back or right back. Like, stick him in that spot because that was what was working.
But the end product isn't there, though. You can beat a man, but he can't find the pass.
You're 100% right about that. But listen, when you have the support up there from Van de Ven behind you, Xavi to more centrally, and like you said, a striker who can hold the ball up, like, things can happen and were happening in this match. That's the first 20 or so minutes of this match were just all Spurs. I mean, they were all over them. And I thought, okay, this is the kind of match that Xavi can work with because he's central. He has not time on the ball, but more time than usual on the ball because a team is sitting back and defending. And the reason that Spurs produced enough from an offensive standpoint to win this game. The reason it was is because they were stupid defensively and tactically. And
you're not wrong.
We back into this match.
You're not wrong. We created the most chances on target that we have since 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, they did enough. Okay, so a couple of things. First and foremost, we've made it all the way to 30 minutes into this podcast, and we haven't said Dubravka's name once. That fucking guy stands on his head in a Tim Krul fashion against us every single time, and he had ridiculous saves in the first half and the second half, for that matter. But specifically in the first half, they kept that game close. And I think without him, we win comfortably, like 3 or 4-2. We also had multiple chances in front of goal and didn't take them. There were multiple times where we kicked the ball directly at the keeper.
Yep.
And so that's on us. So if you look at that, Scotty, and you go, I've got these on-target chances, but I still drew to Burnley, I go back to Andrew's point, which is this is tactical and this is substitution-based, and that points it to one man. The last thing on this that I want to say is when you're continually leaning on your team leaders to come up with huge goals, that takes a massive emotional drain from you and makes you more susceptible to losing games you should win. The second thing is it's unsustainable to expect your center back pairing to have 13 goals. It's unsustainable. And
they've been
so
doing it all season. It's incredible. It's
that
really
again goes back to the tactical situation of Thomas Frank, where it's like, and I don't know, even higher than that with Venai is like we have no teeth in our offense. I've been saying this for weeks. Like we have no teeth in our offense, and that's why we're being reliant upon Mickey and Cootie to do striker work, and that sucks.
Well, and they're doing the striker work that they've been doing all season. The difference for me again, and this gets back to the tactics of it. You switch to that back three, and one of them was marauding forward. Most of the time, it was Romero, obviously, because he's got the head to be able to do it. He's even got the finishing to be able to do it. And when you're doing that kind of thing, you're just setting yourself up for more and more failure tactically. The fact that we outplayed Burnley throughout this match and needed a goal in stoppage time to rescue a point from it says everything to me. That tells you the entire story. Is that we were better than them in the entire game and barely scraped away with a draw from it.
And what I look at there is that's, again, goes back to the coaching. As I'm standing around the table at Fair Play, shout to San Diego Spurs, after the Burnley match, I just looked at everybody and I was like, this game changes nothing about how I feel. Like, I thought Thomas Frank should have gone weeks ago. I think Thomas Frank should go today. I understand why they're making the decision that they're making. I just don't agree with it.
Well, to that point, Todd, again, this is dangerous for me to say on air, right? But when we scored that goal, I just found myself thinking, and let me make myself very clear, I never want my team to lose. I want my team to secure 3 points at all times, right? But when that goal went in, I found myself thinking, like, oh my goodness, like, people who make decisions are going to see this as fight and character and clawing back at the death, right? When maybe getting thumped by Burnley would have just been the final nail in the coffin, right? And again, maybe
we're still fifth in the Champions League, so we can't even say that.
I agree with you 100%. And the point gets us 1 point further away from relegation, right? But I was somewhat, or more than somewhat, concerned that goal being scored was almost a detriment to the organization, right? Rather than anything positive to take away from that match. And that sounds so fucked up and just pessimistic to say, right? But I feel like that's where we're at.
Well, listen,
yeah.
I can't agree with you because I don't think it's a detriment, because Spurs need every point that they can get right now because they're in a fucking relegation battle.
I get that.
Like, that's
right.
Yeah, you're exactly.
That's a true statement.
You have to stay in the Premier League, so you have to be like, I was pumped at the goal because I need every point that this team can get because they legitimately are to this point. They're 8 points clear of West Ham. West Ham win this weekend decidedly. Spurs drop 2 points. We're now 8 points north of the relegation zone. And it's not, it doesn't look any prettier when you look ahead to the month of February and the matches that are on tap. It's, of course, home against City next week, a trip to Old Trafford, home against Newcastle, and home against Arsenal in the month of February. And guess what?
0 points.
If you don't beat Frankfurt this week, you may have 2 more midweek matches thrown in there, a first and second leg playoff round in the Champions League, because they're definitely going to at least advance. It's whether or not they have to play those 2 extra matches in the month of February. So
Yeah, I don't think.
Do you want to throw 2 more matches into that gauntlet of four Premier League games this coming month? I don't
We have
think
to
you
win
do.
that game. We have to win this
Yeah,
game.
the game on Tuesday is hypercritical. I don't think, Scotty, that it changes Thomas Frank's fate one way or the other, to be fair, which is, again, super frustrating. I think on paper, as you look at it, it's a very safe bet to say that we're going to go 0 for 4 in these Premier League matches over the course of the next month. However, I have no idea why. It could be the same hoodoo as to why we get injured at the training ground all the time, but we have a way about ourselves when we play Manchester clubs. So I'm strangely optimistic that we can at least get a point or 2 from that trip. I definitely think we lose at St. James Park, and I definitely think we lose against Arsenal at home, which sucks.
Well, we were not going back to St. James Park. That match.
Oh, I'm sorry, they're coming to see us. Even better.
But regardless, we don't win at home either. So
I mean, if we secure, like, let's say hypothetically we draw both Manchester clubs and take 2 points from those 12, that's best case scenario for me. We're still at the end of those 4 matches. We're still probably 3-4 points clear of relegation at best, I would think. It's gonna, and I'm not trying to be an asshole when I say this, but it's gonna get really dicey for this club after by March. It's gonna be dicey, and I think we need to recognize that as an organization. It's not gonna be pretty. We are coming up against 4 of the more informed teams in the league, right? In these next 4 matches, it's concerning.
Listen, I'm a little more kind of a realist on this, and think that just kind of with the ebbs and flows of football, what we're looking at is 37 points. As I've talked about on this podcast numerous times, you need 37 points by and large to stay up, which means we need 9 more points, right? And so my assertion is we have 2 wins and 3 draws in the rest of our schedule in the Premier League.
Better find them.
Well, I mean, listen, if you go past the next month, like, things open up a little bit for us. But and that's not to say shit, because we can't beat Wolves and we can't beat Burnley and we can't beat West Ham. So I don't know. So all I'm saying is that just the way that football works is that I see 2 more wins and 3 draws for the Tottenham Hotspur club of 25-26. That will keep us in the Premier League, most likely. If we're on that front, and we can definitively say that we are in the Champions League, last 16, last 8, and we're clear of relegation, they're going to give them the rest of the year. Like, they're going to give them the rest of the year.
I do think that's where we're at this point, especially because
that's 100% where we're at.
Is about to close, and that's the other part of this that we haven't even really dove into. Like, we've been going through an entire transfer window with this manager under this kind of scrutiny, and they haven't made a move. So why would they make a move right after a transfer window closes? That just doesn't make much sense to me either. So
no, they're going to give them the window.
Spurs did, of course, announce this week the official signing of Souza, the Brazilian left back, the 19-year-old who's been rumored to be coming for weeks. That was officially made, a deal this week. We talked about Andy Robertson a little bit. That's been hot and heavy. Of course, there's nothing finalized as of yet. In terms of the incomings, look, guys, there's a little over a week left in this window. I don't see what else is coming through the door.
Somerville?
Maybe, but maybe.
Well,
not.
I mean, he's
is that something that excites you?
I like Somerville. I think he's West Ham's best player by a mile. I think that, like, we kind of gave him scoring against us, kind of gave him the confidence that he needed to do all the things. Damn it. Arsenal just equalized. Fuck those guys. On some jammy bullshit. Anyway, no, I think that Somerville is by far the cream of the West Ham crop. Looks like Paqueta is on his way back to Flamenco, so good for him. But I think that Somerville is the one that they can get the most for, and I think we'll probably pay the most for him. I think that the only other ones that I'm actually seeing are like Jan Diamande, but I don't think he comes in the summer or in this window. They're asking a truck ton for him, and I don't necessarily love paying for Leipzig forward players for obvious reasons. And then the other one is I always mess up his name, the French kid from Monaco, Atueche. And but again, then we've got to bed somebody else into the league. The one that I've heard random things about that would make me really happy is Curtis Jones from
Yeah,
Liverpool.
be good
I like
signing.
him a
Be
lot. I
good
think
signing.
that he's a very technical midfielder. I think that he and Gallagher in a pivot would be fucking dangerous for us. I also think, to be fair, that Gallagher needs to be moved up further in the midfield just for what we're saying. So I wouldn't be upset if we got more help there as well. I don't know, Andrew. It doesn't look very promising, and I think it doesn't look very promising for a lot of reasons. One, this club doesn't have an identity. We still don't know who we are. Two, Johan Lange would love to turn that 100 million instead of 2 Premier League signings into like 6 19-year-olds. And ultimately, we don't know who's going to be managing the club in the summer. So, like, if I'm a Premier League proven asset, why would I want to sign a deal with Tottenham?
Yeah,
All
100%,
sounds
man.
accurate to me. Scott, go ahead.
I mean, we were a fan base that was super excited about signing Andy Robertson, and that's crumbling in front of our eyes, right? And not saying that the three of us were like over the top about it, right?
I was going to
But
say that's.
I don't know that it
pretty
is, dude. I
euphemistic
can't
word.
see anything on Celtic, brother.
I don't know. I saw yesterday, and this is not on Twitter. I don't even have Twitter on my devices anymore, right? This was just coming from like my Andrew's favorite Apple News, right? Which is just basically a compilation of actual news sources for me, right? But I saw that he was on his way to Celtic. Anyways, whatever. We'll see what happens. If we sign him, great. If we don't, I won't be surprised. But,
Yeah, I mean, regardless,
yeah, it
we
looks
don't
really
know,
dicey.
and it's a week left. It's not great. It's and even
who have we
even
brought in now? Gallagher and Souza. Is that it?
Yep,
Yeah,
that's it. And we've shipped Brennan Johnson, so we are in the black for this window.
And by the way, in terms of outgoings, you're not selling Dragishin, who made a brief appearance this weekend.
Oh.
You're also not selling Basuma at this point, who started and fucking looked good in the
Dude,
role.
Basuma was
that he played
really
against
good
Burnley.
yesterday.
Like,
And I hate. I'm
by
not.
the way, I hate saying it too, but by the way, that's all you need that guy to do. Just be in the middle of the park and
Yeah.
recycle the ball. Like,
Yep,
don't-
pass it to Gallagher.
He cleaned up danger many times yesterday. He was very, very good. I think Basuma was probably my man of the match. And again, it tastes so bad coming out of my mouth when I say that, right? But Basuma was extremely good. Also, give credit to Wilson Odebear. If we're talking about decent performances
Odebear's
yesterday,
been so good too.
He was
talked
really
about it
good
at the Champions League.
yesterday.
He's got 3 assists this week.
Yeah, 100%. And I know we already said it, but let's double click. Dom Solanke's hold up play just makes such a massive difference to this club. I mean, a huge part of that though is because tactically we're fucking inept, and the only thing we can do is get the ball to our striker and ask him to hold it up and just like hope that something good happens off of that. So credit to Dom Solanke, but it also continues to expose the tactical issues that this team faces that we required Dom's services so much. And Dom's a fantastic player, right? But when all we're asking him to do is hold the ball up, like I think it really is a detriment to the other things that he's able to do as well, right? So, but shout out to Dom. He was really good.
Guys,
Agreed.
the news has not been good on the Spurs men's side for weeks, but it is kind of rare that we talk about a Spurs women defeat in the way that we're about to, because Spurs women did not look good on Sunday against Liverpool. A 2-0 defeat, which is a little bit deceiving because both goals came like right at the end of the game for Liverpool. It was 0-0 all the way there. But Martin Ho said it best. Spurs did not deserve anything from this match. They were frankly dreadful and kind of looked like they had never seen their teammates before. The way that we talked about patterns of play and how good the passings looked for weeks. It just wasn't there on Sunday against Liverpool, and Spurs do suffer defeat in this match. It was nice to see some of the new signings come back into the fold, and we saw Tinka Tamberg as well make a return from injury along with Olga Ottanen. But this match for me was just nobody had the attacking oomph up top. Gopset was way off of it from what we've seen in her brief stint with the club. Beth England couldn't really get any service. Hamano wasn't really doing much on the right side. There just was nothing really going right for Spurs in this match. They had their moments, but weren't able to execute on any of them, and kind of just got their asses kicked up and down the pitch by a Liverpool team that had not yet won a match prior to this one in the WSL season.
Yeah, it was disappointing to see. To your point, we looked kind of off it. Milton had a decent game, but she was about the only one that really stood out. Yeah, I don't know if the early start got to them too. It is 3:55 local time for me when that one kicked off, a.m. So that was a bit of a challenge. I don't know, man. This was one of those ones where they had the opportunity to take a really solid step forward towards some Champions League place competition, but it just kind of went sideways. I don't know. Towards the end of the game, it kind of seemed as though they were just playing for the draw and they got exposed.
Yeah, I do think Drew Spence played fairly well. I think Drew Spence was probably the only person who was on today, and it actually led to situations where she turned the ball over because her teammates were just not in sync around her. I think she saw the game in a way that no one else was really reading the game today, and I always got to give some love to Drew Spence. I think Holt was decent too. I think Holt was trying to make things happen, and again, kind of in the same ilk as Drew Spence. The rest of the team maybe wasn't clicking around her, which impacted the eye test of an Olivia Holt performance today. Rybrink got just absolutely ran over by Holland. I mean, just over and over and over and over. And Holland had a really good game today. I was very impressed with her on the left wing, but Rybrink really struggled against her. The only thing I noticed today that was maybe somewhat of a positive was that Claire Hunt was she was lively and kind of all over the place. There was a few times where she made some really good runs, and I didn't realize that she had that pace or I want to say I don't want to say athletic ability because that's hard. She's definitely an athlete, right? But just the pace and the quickness that I had never really seen from Claire Hunt before. So I was happy to see her at least becoming a little more lively and brave in the attack. Maybe begs the question, do we want our center backs doing that, as we just had the conversation on the men's side, right? But I give a little bit of love to Claire Hunt. But as you said, Andrew, Martin Ho said it best, we deserve nothing. Also, I thought it was interesting, Martin Ho, and again, I continue to fall more and more in love with this man, right? But he said after the match, this is an example of the fact that we are not quite yet a Champions League caliber team, but we're getting there. He said, yep. What I love more than anything is he said, this is an opportunity for us to continue to get there because we can take a step back and we can look at ourselves, look in the mirror. I'm massively paraphrasing here, but look in the mirror and we can improve off of this and see what kind of mentality we take away from this, right? Which, interestingly enough, a fuming, scathing Beth England in her post-match interview. I mean, she was fucking pissed, and it wasn't so much about what she said. It was just her demeanor and the way that she was talking and the look on her face. You really have to watch the interview to take away what I'm trying to say, right? But she came out and just said this is absolutely not the standard that we've said at this club, right? And she basically called her teammates out and said, I'll be very interested to see, who has the mentality to bounce back from this and use it as an improvement. So she really called her teammates out. But she was fuming and she was furious, and that's everything that you ask for from a captain, especially one who, like you said, Andrew, the only thing she didn't do anything wrong in this match. She just wasn't able to get any service. I think any half chances we had in this game came from Beth England just being brave and putting herself in positions that she really had no right to be in. So
I mentioned the returns for Tinka Tanberg and Olga Ottinen from injury. We also saw debuts for Julia Blackstead and Matilda Nilden off the bench. Martin Ho's still getting this integrated, these new signings. And obviously the other big news of the week is we saw Kit Graham go out. Goes to Ipswich Town on loan. We're kind of just continuing to see the changing of the guard, and Martin Ho putting his stamp on who is in the plans long term, who is not, players moving left and right. So, they have a chance to regroup. They've got West Ham next week, a trip away. And that's another team that they should be. I think that's the big difference when we're talking about Spurs women. We're starting to get to that point where this was a match against Liverpool, despite it being away, that they should have performed better in. They should have won. We had higher expectations for them. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go into next week in the same boat. They are better than West Ham. They should go to West Ham and win the match if they play to their capabilities and what we've seen from them so far this season. If they don't, it will be disappointing. I think this is the big difference that I'm seeing right now in both the men's and women's team. The women's team I am actually starting to gain expectations for, and that's why seeing them suffer a defeat like this, a 2-0 where they just looked frankly dreadful. I mean, couldn't even produce 3/4 of a goal in XG, and just didn't have anything going for them. That's why it's such a contrast in the expectation, and why it's so disappointing that they performed as poorly as they did in this match, because we're starting to get those expectations. So the Kit Graham move too, not quite as impactful, I think, as like the Ashley Neville of it all, but Kit Graham's another player that has come up with this club and been a really big part of it, and obviously has gone through a couple of ACL injuries and had her time and her minutes limited because of it. Probably not a long-term option, and that's the reason for the move. You would think that it's going to end up being a permanent one eventually, but we're just continuing to see that changing of the guard, which is difficult, but that's part of the growth and part of trying to get this team to level up and to get to that point. And I really do think that Martin Ho has a great understanding for what he's talking about when he says this team's not at the level, but, and the but is really important there. Everything that comes after that but is what he's working on and trying to build on top of to get them there. And I think there are at least signs that we've seen that improvement happen, and it can happen still going forward despite the setbacks like this one.
Agreed.
Yep.
All right. Fair enough. Anything else you guys needed to get off your chest before we wrap it up on the depot this week?
Matthias Cunha just fucking scored a banger for Manchester United against the Scum to go up 3-2. There's like 2 minutes left as we record right now, and so hopefully.
Right, and we think we have hope against United, who are about to potentially go away to the leaders and win.
Our ass.
Exactly.
Listen. I said a trip to Manchester, we may get a couple of points from that. I'm hedging on our good fortune against the blue side of Manchester, to be fair. Though,
well, that one's home. We don't even have to go up there.
Oh, dude, then it's at home. Yeah, Pep can't win at our stadium. That's what I'm going with. No, I don't know, dude. The Carrick effect is an interesting one, right? For Manchester United, the league is better when Manchester United is not 15th. So I'm okay with that. They're actually in 4th right now.
I was going to say they're in the top 4 if they win this match.
Yeah, no, they're. No, I'm saying last year, like it was dreadful. Like Ruben Amorim is the Thomas Frank of Manchester coaches.
Well,
so
what's really wild to me about this whole thing is that we, of course, played that lot in a cup final in Europe last season, and both of us finished terribly in the Premier League, and that everybody deemed that match to be like a big factor in how these two teams move forward. Look at where they both are right now.
Well, what that shows me, Andrew, is that it boils down to appointment, right? Because it's the same version. Well, I take that back. And Manchester United actually spent on Premier League proven players in guys like Mbeumo and I think Cunha as well. So, when you spend and you bring in people that are professionals at this level, and proven professionals in the league in which you're playing, you have a higher likelihood of competing the next season.
Well, and they moved on from their manager and are seeing the improvement in their play, similar to what Chelsea have done. Like all these clubs that are well above us and have moved on and are seeing a lift in their play.
Yeah.
And yet here we are sitting and wallowing in 14th place. I mean, that's just the way
it's also worth noting, that Man United just has a little more pull in the badge and the name, right? And I think that's probably why they were able to secure a guy like Brian Mbeumo or Matheus Cunha. I mean, we tried for Premier League talent, and we failed because they decided they didn't want to come to Spurs, right? So
No, that's not what happened. We failed because we couldn't sign fucking Eberici as we should have, because we were haggling about some bullshit. We failed because there are so many examples of we could have if we would have paid and we didn't pay. So everything that we're going through right now is self-inflicted, bro.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I look at like a Morgan Gibbs-White and an Antoine Semenyo, right? And even an Eze, who opted for another club in the long run. So anyways, this is a whole nother conversation. But my other point is that if you're an up-and-coming manager, be very careful about the job that you take. because it could really fuck your career up. So let's leave it at that.
Well, I agree with you. It takes a lot of restraint because managers in general, like there's a certain amount of ego and hubris that comes along with that position. There has to be in order to be
100%.
at this level. And so when you're kicking the shit out of everybody in Portugal and all of a sudden you get a phone call from Manchester United, what are you going to do? Not go?
Of course.
Right? You got to go. But it's just,
yeah.
Well, and this is what I'm saying is like he's going to fail and he's going to get the hook and he's going to go back down to to either train under a manager for a Big Six club or, a Real Madrid or a Barcelona and be a second over there and get his chops up, or he's going to go apply his craft in a lesser league and kind of go in a different route. But ultimately, you're going to get another chance. If you're good enough, you'll get another chance. And so it's just a matter of going and improving. Like you look at, for example, one of the most famous coaches in America in any sport is Bill Belichick, right? What a lot of people don't know is that before Bill Belichick was the head coach of the Patriots, Bill Belichick was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and they were fucking terrible, and he got fired. And a lot of that had to do with him and the way that he did things, and a lot of that had to do with the Browns and the way that they did things, and a lot of that had to do with the personnel that they had on the field that were awful. And so when all three of those things come into a perfect shitstorm, everybody gets fired. And that's kind of where we're at Spurs right now. And so we're going through the recycle butt. I don't know, man. I don't think that Thomas Frank is a bad guy. I don't think that he's a bad coach. I just think that you have to, fit is everything. And it's everything. It's obviously the need has to be there, but the fit has to be there, Andrew, because otherwise it's not going to work.
What I just heard from you is that Spurs are the Cleveland Browns of the Premier League, and that makes me very, very sad, and I want to go cry now. So I'm going to go do that.
I'm going with the Patriots rather than the Browns, and we're just we haven't hired our Bill Belichick yet. No, dude. If you think about the Patriots pre-Belichick, I want you to think on that. Patriots pre-Pete Carroll or whatever it was.
What I'm going to think about for the rest of the day is the fact that Spurs had an awful week, but Arsenal lost. So I can take that and run with it and have fun with it.
I'm in.
Embrace that part of it. That is going to do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page at youtube.com/Tottenham Depot, or leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice to help spread the word about the show. You can follow Todd at TC_Show. You can follow Scott at Scott G. Bird. Follow me at Astetka. Most importantly, follow us at Tottenham Depot for the latest pods that we put out every single week. We will talk to you next week. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.